And hello, everybody, and thanks for coming along and joining us. Right, well, it's a very warm welcome to the Summer Valley Forum. Now, I've got to remind you all to keep background noise to a minimum, please, and to only speak one person at a time and not to speak over other people. If you keep your microphones on mute when you're not speaking, and then unmute when I invite you to speak. Please indicate if you wish to speak by using the chat facility on Zoom, by typing MIS, which is may I speak, and I'll call you to speak in turn. Please also type your name in the chat so that we have a record of who is attending. That'd be brilliant. Now, I expect you've seen that this meeting will be recorded and placed on the council's YouTube channel so that people can view it afterwards if they wish. If you do not wish to appear, turn off your video. Okay? Now, we have received some apologies from Councillor Liz Hardman and Councillor Ron Hopkins. So we're moving on now to update from the Police and Fire Service. And I believe we have Richard Ball from the Fire Service with us. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, well, myself and Mike. Yeah, Mike Coe.
You and Mike, right?
Yeah.
Well, over to you for your address.
Right, Magic. Thanks. Evening, everyone. Just a quickie. We've got to be gone by 8:30, so do apologise because our training night 6:30. Sorry. So we do a little bit and stay for a bit. We've got some important training tonight, so do apologise for that. Just a few issues we've had over the last 3 months with Radco, really. That's the main concern I'd like to put across this evening. We've been called to, I would say, several fires, deliberate fires. We've been liaising with the police about it, about the disused Radco superstore. And the last one, unfortunately, was right up against the building, which is obviously cladded in wood. So I'd like to ask you all or something, can we do something about that, get it sorted? Because the smoke entered the building, set the fire alarms off and stuff like that. We haven't got a key holder registered on the system, but we do have a name now, and that will be added to the system so we can call them up if we do need to get access to it. But there's, again, for the police, there's problems, or the council, there's problems with kids, youth hanging around all the time. We've just got nothing better to do, I suppose. But it's going to be a big problem if it does catch fire, because the resources we need for that will be, well, costly to the taxpayer for one. And if we do get called out, we are taken away from any other emergency calls responding. So, for instance, if one of your houses or anyone around your area was an incident, we won't be able to go that. So 5 minutes down the road, you probably have to wait 20 minutes for a fire engine.
So basically, we're envisaging that the way it's going down there with the youths that are gathering, their fires are getting closer and closer to the building. They're getting bigger and bigger. And like Rich said, the last one was right up against the building. Now, like Rich said, if that was to catch a building, you would basically shut Radstock down for 24 hours, Tyne, Rivlington, going on into Froome because of the smoke. Youths are trying very hard to get themselves into the building, and it's only a matter of time before they do get into the building. And if they do get in there and set a fire in there, then we'll be dragging dead bodies out, basically. That's the long and short of it. The youths have nowhere to go. They're graffitiing the property down there. Something needs to be done. Our hands are tied with, there's only so much we can do. Same as the police, there's only so much they can do. There is no CCTV around the outskirts of Radco. We have looked to see if there is any, and there isn't. So something needs to be done, basically, before we end up losing the building.
I appreciate that. I mean, it's quite an important build, or an important area within the town, isn't it? So it must be a big problem for you. if I can say this, because I have an involvement with Radco, because I'm on the board of directors. So I have spoken with the CEO and asked him about this when I saw your report coming up. And he said actually that, yes, he's been talking with you and the police about this, I understand. And they're looking for private, or have organised some private security patrols. So that is at least a start. Yeah, they are causing quite severe damage. So it is a case of getting something done. And we are actually looking into getting something done. So I will actually tomorrow get back to the CEO and say about your suggestion for cameras and see where we go from that. But thank you very much for coming, tonight and telling us about this.
That's lovely, thank you.
No problem.
Okie doke. Before you go, we have a message, or Michael Evans would like to make a comment.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add that there seems to be quite an ongoing interest in arson at the moment. We had a number of sort of brush fires being started by youths, dragging bits of trees and so on onto the amphitheatre in Midsomer Norton Town Park. That it seems to be going on at the moment. Just to add to that, that's not a solution, but I'm afraid it's an extra problem.
Yeah. Yes, these things seem to be happening all over the place, don't they, at the moment? Yeah. Okay.
Is there, sorry, is there anything in place or anything that can do for obviously kids around here? I know there's a few different things we probably could target. But again, I know they shouldn't be setting fires and stuff like that, but there's nowhere for them to go, is there? There's nothing.
They're bored.
They are getting bored, and they can access lighters and matches or whatever and rubbish quite easily, but it just doesn't seem to be the places for youth that used to be when I was a kid.
Yeah. Eleanor Jackson.
Well, I was just going to draw your attention to the fact that the Youth Connect service is running sessions twice a week in Radstock and once a week in Westfield in the chapel there. There is a problem with youths of a certain age, though. They've tended in recent months to concentrate on the younger children aged about 11 to 13. Those sessions, by the way, are funded by the parish and town councils. The youth services run by B&NES has more or less stopped, and well, it's been very greatly reduced. And I worry also about the mental health provision in this area, which is very, very limited. And if a child is troubled, it can take a year or more to get an appointment with a child psychologist.
Mm.
So I think that's also another avenue.
Yeah.
Well, it's just, there is very little to do for a young person to do who hasn't got any money. I think that's more the crunch of the matter. Otherwise, they could get themselves to things that are going on. And the bus fares, they say, are too expensive.
Yeah.
And we might also consider the question of the Bath Rugby Club Foundation not getting future funding, because their activities among these young people in the summer months on the West Hill ground, and I believe that they were also in Midsomer Norton, were extremely successful. And surely, sport is one way to relieve boredom and run off energy.
Yes, you're right there, certainly. Yes.
Michael.
I think Michael is coming back again. Michael.
Thank you. Yes, just to add to what Eleanor said, Midsomer Norton Town Council is financing Youth Connect in Midsomer Norton as well. So there are some attempts going on to engage. Certainly it's outreach workers partly that are being financed by the town council. So it's not quite that there's nothing on offer. should be plenty of homework, by the way, as well. I'm sorry to strike a slightly cynical note, but I don't think people need to amuse themselves by setting fire to things, really.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And Simon Gould. Oh, sorry, no, you've just signed in.
I was just putting my name down to show where I was from.
Sorry,
Thank you anyway.
thank you anyway. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, well, thank you very much for coming from the fire brigade, and we really need your services, so I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Yes,
Cheers,
indeed.
thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Have we had our hoped for person from the police force here? We understood PSCFO Daniel Beck may be coming tonight. No? Okay, well, obviously things have been happening and he hasn't been able to make it. So I think we'll have to move on, will we not? Yeah. Okie doke then. So I would like to say it's been quite good really to remind you that the Baines Community Safety Partnership are currently reviewing their community safety plan and have asked us to pass on any related issues raised at forum meetings. If there are any other concerns you want to pass on, please contact Alison and Sarah, both of whom are here, and they will put contact details in the chat for you. Okay, so yeah, right then, well, perhaps a little bit, oh no, right on time. How about this? Item 3 then, the main theme for tonight, the main agenda items relate to the Summer Valley Rediscovered project and its links to green social prescribing. There will be 4 presentations, and if we could keep questions to the end of these, this will be helpful for timekeeping. However, you can make use of the chat facility, which will be monitored. So presentation 1, I would like to introduce Miriam Woodnuff, Summer Valley Heritage and Environment Development Manager with the Council, and Jane Wright, Senior Advisor, Natural England, and they're going to give an overview of the Summer Valley Rediscovered project.
Okay, thank you very much, Linda. I'm going to kick off first, and I'm going to try and share my screen if I can. Okay, can everyone see that and hear me? Great, fantastic. Okay, so I'm Miriam Walner and I'm the project manager for Summer Valley Rediscovered. It's really good to see you all this evening. I think it was towards the end of 2020 when I last spoke at the Summer Valley Area Forum. So the plan tonight is to give you a bit of an update on what we've been doing at Summer Valley Rediscovered, and also show you how this project links into the work that the other speakers are doing tonight. So a little bit of background to the project. It's Summer Valley Rediscovered. It's 2 years old now. I came into post in February 2020, and my remit was to scope a project. So it's a landscape scale partnership project in the Summer Valley, and it's currently led by Bath and North East Somerset Council, who are my employer, Wessex Water and Natural England. It's one of 7 strategic green infrastructure projects within the west of England. So it's recognised as a green infrastructure project by WECA. And it's as the name suggests, it's a landscape project. So it's looking quite holistically at the landscape of the Summer Valley. So looking at the wildlife, looking at geology, heritage, and also at the communities that live within the Summer Valley. We're interested in improving walking and cycling facilities, and we're also it's also got a really strong health and wellbeing strand. So recognising how important that green space is for both physical health and mental health as well. And my colleague Jane from Natural England is she's concentrating on the health and wellbeing side of the project. So she'll speak a bit more about that in her presentation. So this is a map of the project area. As you can see, it covers quite a large area. It covers the whole of the Somer Valley Area Forum area, but we've got a bit of, we've got a few extra parishes on as well. And the boundaries, it's kind of been drawn up around the catchment of the Cam and Wellow and how that relates to the Somer Valley, but it's also gives a nod to the North Somerset coalfield area too. So I've currently been focusing a lot of my work around the more populated areas of the project area. But our aspiration for Somer Valley Rediscovered is that it's a long-term project. It's 10 years plus. So just because things aren't happening now in a particular area, then it doesn't mean that they won't in the future. And we kind of envisage it being a project where there's different programs and different things happening at different times. So yeah, there's lots to shout about in landscape terms of the Somer Valley. We've got beautiful scenery, beautiful views. We've got some really special wildlife. We've got the heritage of the area. There's obviously, we talk a lot about the coal mining heritage of the area, but there's other heritage as well. That's one of the World War II pillboxes, which made up part of the stop line across the southwest of England during World War II. And then we've also got a really good network of walking and of footpaths and cycle paths in the area. So lots of opportunities to get out and about. So the work that I've been doing so far, my remit when I started was to scope projects and to build relationships. As I mentioned, it's very much a partnership project, so it's not about coming into the area and doing lots of things just ourselves. It's very much about working with the key stakeholders in the area. So I've been working quite closely with Midsomer Norton Town Council, Radstock Town Council and Westfield Parish Council on their newly acquired green space sites, which includes the Town Park in Midsomer Norton, and Hayden Batch in Radstock, and Waterstone Valley in Westfield. So I've been supporting where I can for those projects. More recently, I've been working with the estates team at Curo, because Curo are a reasonable sized land owner in the area, and there's lots of opportunity there with some of their land to make it better for biodiversity. We worked with the town and parish councils to produce the green space map, which is on several bus shelters around the area. So hopefully some of you have seen that over the past year. I think it's almost a year that it's been up. And then we've been looking at projects to do with biodiversity net gain, which is something that is coming in, which will apply to development sites in the future, about needing to provide more biodiversity than once the development is complete. It needs to have 10% more biodiversity than it started with. So we've been looking at whether there's mechanisms within this to help fund long-term management of green space sites. And then finally, we've been working alongside Wessex Water and Natural England on a sub-project called Pharmaceuticals and Nature, which Jane will talk a little bit about later. But it's looking at the links to the amount of pharmaceuticals found in watercourses and whether you can decrease that by increasing the amount of green social prescribing on offer. But I'll leave I'll leave that to Jane to explain further. So within my work, I've been really mindful to link it into other pieces of work that have been going on. So at a West of England level, we link into the Joint Green Infrastructure Plan as one of the green infrastructure projects, and also the West of England Nature Partnership Green Recovery Network. So that's at a West of England level. So this isn't just a project in isolation. It links in. It links into other projects. And then at a BANES level, the work that we've been doing is very much links into the ecological emergency. And the team that I sit within BANES is the Green Infrastructure and Nature Recovery team, which have got responsibility for leading on response to the ecological emergency. So this work fits in really well with that. And then other projects that I've been linking to, the Heritage Action Zone project on the High Street in Midsomer, Norton. There's some good links there about linking from the High Street to green space. And I recently met with the new cultural officer, Beth, to talk about events that might link up, events on green space and events on the High Street. So yeah, really mindful to link in the work that we're doing into other projects that are going on. So all this kind of background work and development work has been leading to devising some projects that we want to find funding for. And so our focus at the moment is to make a bid to WECA for their newly established Green Infrastructure Fund. So we would like to bid to them to provide funding for 5 key green spaces in the Midsomer, Norton, Radstock, Westfield area. So that's Hayden Batch, Waterside Valley, the Town Park, Willowbrook Walk, and then Staddlestone's open space. So as I mentioned, I'm already working with the town and parish councils, and 4 out of 5 of those sites have got master plans in place, or very nearly in place, detailing improvements to infrastructure that we'd like to happen at those sites. So this could be a mechanism of funding that infrastructure. And then we're also mindful of other green spaces which kind of link to those sites, which as yet undefined, but there could be other sort of smaller sites that we link into as well. So improvements there could include improvements to biodiversity, but also improving access, improving the entrances to the site. So that's the kind of hard infrastructure that we're looking at within the bid. But then supporting that is funding for community participation projects. So to support volunteer programs at some of these sites, recruiting and training volunteers, and supporting existing volunteers. And then also would like to have funding for events to happen on green spaces that are quite a wide range of different events to attract as wide a range of audience as possible. And it's just a way of, I think you can improve, you can put the physical improvements into green spaces, but without having a programme to encourage people who might not be the usual users of these spaces. I think it just makes it a lot stronger if we can provide funding for community engagement events as well. And then within that topic is the Green Social Prescribing Programme. So this is providing regular activities that GPs and link workers can signpost people to if they feel it would be of benefit. And as I say, Jane will talk more about that, and Justin as well, I believe. So that's our real focus at the moment. But there's also other projects that we are involved with. So we've got a significant input into the active travel social prescribing bid, which Jenny and Farhan are going to talk about in a minute. So that is around walking and cycling and increasing the social prescribing opportunities towards walking and cycling. But I will let them explain it in a moment. And then we're also in discussions with the Bristol Avon Rivers Trust regarding the wider Wellow and Cam river catchment. So obviously the Wellow and tributaries of the Wellow pass through the south of the area, and then we've got the Cam a bit further north. So there's lots of potential projects there, working with landowners, also citizen science projects, so training volunteers to survey wildlife. So some interesting ideas there. And then we're also really interested in the Limestone Link long distance path, as this is a route that comes right through Somer Valley Rediscovered project area, but links the Cotswolds to the Mendips, really beautiful path. And that links in a little bit with the work that Laura is going to talk to you about from the Somersetshire Coal Canal, because the Limestone Link very closely follows the northern arm of the Somersetshire Coal Canal. So I think that's probably enough from me now, and I will hand over to Jane.
Thank you, Miriam. While my presentation is uploaded, I will just introduce myself and try and explain why Natural England is involved in the Somer Valley. Natural England has only recently got involved with people and nature. Our People and Nature survey has shown that over a 10-year period, 2009 to 2019, there are a number of visits to urban green spaces increased by almost 40%. And these are particularly important, these visits, to people who don't have a private garden. Almost 3/4 of adults in England during the first lockdown were taking more time to notice and engage with everyday nature. And those people that were asked, they agreed that being in nature made them very happy. So this has the results of our survey, which is regularly conducted, led our Chief Executive to say that this wealth of evidence leaves no doubt about the importance of connecting with nature for our physical health and our mental well-being. It is vital that the whole of our society has access to these benefits. If we don't tackle this, we cannot claim to have an equitable green recovery. Next slide, please. So Natural England has an ambitious programme called Connecting People with Nature, which has 5-year aims to connect more people with and act for the natural environment, to have more people spending time in nature, to have more people benefiting from the natural environment, to have better quality, accessible, nature-rich places close to where people live, to have better access to high-quality nature further afield, and to have more resilient environment that protects people from environmental harms such as flooding and air pollution. So you'll see there's a very close connection there with Somer Valley Rediscovered. Next slide, please. So, you're teasing me. So green social prescribing is one example of how we can work with nature to deliver the health and well-being benefits that we're all becoming much more aware of. And the government have made us aware of that. In the 25-year environment plan, there was an objective to help people improve their health and well-being by using green spaces, including through mental health services. And the NHS long-term plan stated that over 1,000 trained social prescribing link workers will be in place by the end of 2021, rising further by 23-24, with the aim that over 900,000 people will be able to be referred to social prescribing schemes by then. I've recently been in touch with the Three Valleys PCN, and I'm told that we will shortly have 3 part-time link workers starting, which will be a massive help to the GPs and the care coordinators in our surgeries. So what is green social prescribing? Well, the government definition is it's the practice of supporting people to engage in nature-based interventions and activities to improve their mental health. Social prescribing link workers and other professionals like village agents connect people to community groups and agencies for practical and emotional support based on a what matters to you conversation. So it could be a series of different things like gardening, natural arts and crafts, working on farms, walking and cycling. And we're involved across government with multiple stakeholders to scale up green social prescribing services in England. Next slide, please. We have 3 main work streams currently running. One is in partnership with the NHS. It's a series of 7 pilots across the country, the nearest of which is in Bristol. It covers the whole of the Bristol, North Somerset and South Gloucestershire CCG area. And there is money there to support green social prescribing. We also have a network of regional health leads who are promoting the health benefits that the natural environment can provide, showing what good green social prescribing looks like, and embedding green social prescribing into the overall social prescribing offer. We have one advisor for the Southwest, and I work closely with the Bristol pilot and the regional health lead so that we all know what each other is doing. And then the project that I'm involved with is the one that Miriam has already mentioned, pharmaceuticals and nature. Next slide, please. So, as Miriam has already said, the green social prescribing in the Somer Valley is to look at whether or not it has the potential to reduce the amount, of pharmaceuticals entering wastewater treatment systems in the Somer Valley, and to begin to understand the pharmaceutical pathways involved in wastewater and sewage treatment systems. University of Bath are doing a lot of modelling on the water chemistry, and Wessex Water are funding that. So the objectives then are to support people accessing primary care with prescriptions for nature-based interventions, and where appropriate to reduce pharmaceutical prescriptions, their use and their disposal. It's also to deliver the quality and quantity of nature-based interventions and green infrastructure needed to support this project. So again, very close links with Somer Valley Rediscovered. And to begin to monitor, analyse and report on pharmaceuticals present in waste and sewage water treatment systems. Next slide, please. So we have had a small amount of money for the 2 years I've been working, nearly 2 years in July, I've been working in the area. And it's enabled us to do sort of taster sessions with 6 charities in the area, one of whom is Sporting Family Change, who are, if you know them, they are the most incredible, hardworking, passionate, caring people. They use sport to empower, inspire and motivate local families. They often start at the front door, knocking on the front door to agoraphobic people, and gradually encouraging them to come outside and get further and further from home and to take more and more exercise. And that's been extremely beneficial during COVID. Next slide, please. Another excellent, just over the border actually, into Mendip, Stratton-on-the-Fosse, is a project called Root Connections. Root Connections is based on a farm, and the farm has a converted dairy house, which is used to house homeless, vulnerable adults. And the idea of the community garden there was set up to support those adults. But now it's been expanded, and the acre of land they have there, which has polytunnels, is available for people with poor mental health locally, including Midsomer, Norton and Radstock. It's available for people with special needs. It's available for school refusers, teenagers, and it's available for any volunteer who wishes to help out in the garden in beautiful countryside. Next slide, please. Another organisation which you may have come across is Eco Wild, who do a lot of training. They've trained the local GPs and link workers and care coordinators to raise the profile of green social prescribing. And they've also done some nature well training as well, which I think some of you have been involved with. They work mainly out of Greyfield Wood, but they're also now running a men's group in the Free Rangers Nursery. And they look at enhancing our relationship with the environment. They look at doing a series of different activities, arts, crafts, cooking, and also just reflection and spending time relaxing in the woodland. It's a fantastic place. I recommend it. Next slide, please. So currently this month, we are running a series of sessions to meet the needs of patients at St Chad's Surgery in Midsomer, Norton. Jenny Wilson at Public Health Baines put me in touch with St Chad's because they expressed a desire to get more involved with green prescribing. And so we've worked to co-design a series of different sessions to meet the needs of their patients. And the clinical director there highlighted the need to really help teenagers and men. And so we're currently running on Monday nights at Midsomer Norton Town Hall, Palace of Wonder, run by Youth Connect Southwest. And the young lady on the left in that photograph was from this last Monday. Another project is called Creative Nature Well, which is being run out of the Swallow Cafe, and Eco Wild and another organisation, Creativity Works, are doing joint art sessions which involve looking at the natural environment, taking natural resources and making art with it. There's a men's outdoor group, as I mentioned, running at Free Rangers Nursery, and that's based on a similar session that Emily has been running at Greyfield Wood to great success. And there is also some training, level 2 training in Nature Well, being funded by ourselves. And then the surgery itself, St Chad's Surgery, is looking at creating a vegetable and fruit garden on their green space. And so hopefully that will become a very local, safe green space for patients to go to and start to develop a bit of a connection with nature. So that is what I've been up to, if you've got any questions, but perhaps we shall pass on to Jenny now, who is excitingly, hopefully, getting us some money to have some permanent funding, or at least some more long-term funding. Thank you.
Okay, all right. If you like, we've only had 4 things come up on chat. So Simon Gould was the first one. So would you like to come in and mention your query again, please?
Yeah, thank you. It was a question around the first presentation, how we can support the aims of the project with our neighbourhood plan. So our plan is still in development, and Eleanor answered to suggest looking at the Westfield plan, which I've actually downloaded as you've been talking. There's some really good stuff in there, so I'll follow up on that and get in touch with the clerk for Westfield. But thank you.
That's brilliant. I'm so pleased, and thank you, Eleanor, for doing that. That's very kind of you. Okay, then we've got Roger Burfoot, who came up with a query.
Yes, good evening. Shall I speak?
Yes.
Yeah, hello everyone. Roger Burfoot. I'm Vice Chair of Trustees at the Somerset and Dorset Railway Heritage Trust, Midsomer Norton. We're just on the edge of the map that Miriam showed us earlier. And a lot of the things you're touching on this evening are of interest to us in areas where we might be able to help. There are also, we have some projects of our own, in effect, going on where we have vulnerable youths coming to the railway to engage in various We call them low-level projects, simple tasks such as helping with the clearing, helping with the gardening, and so on. We have a strong gardening team who are always looking for volunteers and are very keen to work with the local community. And also as a railway, we are finding that you're touching on the subject of youths and men. Particularly, we have a number of men who come to the railway, not with any great knowledge of railways and so on, but they just like coming along to help. There's always jobs to do. And we're also looking to work with the local cycleway project and green spaces. So as we do things on the railway, we want to be very much in step with what other organisations and things you're touching on with Natural England are concerning about. So really, we're just putting our hand up, I suppose, to say we'd like to help, we'd like to participate.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much for that. And I hope that they'll get in touch with you as soon as possible. Okay, then we've got Eleanor came on and then Michael.
Hi, yes, I was wondering if you had any connection with Southwest in Bloom, especially as some of the projects that were mentioned are actually in Southwest in Bloom already, as it's your neighbourhood entries, including, of course, the station.
Would you like me to answer that? Yeah, so no, I haven't had a direct contact yet. I don't know whether Jane has or not, but I'm certainly aware of the existence of Southwest in Bloom. And yeah, I think you're right. I think it would be really good to make contact. So thanks for that.
Thanks very much. And Michael Evans, please.
Thank you, Linda. I just wanted to add to what Roger was just saying about the possibilities at the station, which sound excellent. Midsomer Norton Town Council has fairly recently been gifted some land quite close to the station, and it's looking for community uses for it, which could include a farm of some sort, not necessarily animals, but certainly planting. And it looks like a very good opportunity, which might be able to link up with this project if you like to contact the town council. Second point, just briefly, if I may, is you did mention the Free Rangers School, Jane, and I wonder if there are contacts with any other schools, because what would be really nice would be to imagine that each school felt that it had access to a particular green area, and if you could build up links between each school and a green area, that could have very long-lasting benefits, I think. Thanks.
I agree entirely, and it's something that Miriam and I have discussed in relation to a lot of the green spaces that she's working on. And I think what we lack is resource, we lack money. Once we have a pot of money, we will, I am sure, be looking to work with the whole community, including schools, because education is the greatest resource, isn't it? And we need to ensure that we start the community young. So yes, definitely.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Now Justin has to leave soon, so we're going to swap round and go over to presentation 3. And so I would like to introduce Justin Ride, Head of Wellbeing Services, which HCRG, which was formerly Virgin Care, to speak about outdoor networks and the Wellbeing College. So over to Justin for his brief chat.
Thanks, Linda. Yeah, I haven't done a presentation. I did inform Alison Wells of that, but even so, hopefully I've got some good information to share with everyone. And thanks to Miriam and Jane as well, because I am linked to Jane, just so everybody knows. I think it's quite useful for people to know who's linked to who. So as Linda said, I'm the head of wellbeing for HCRG Care Group, and that covers our mental health services, our wellbeing courses, previously known as the Wellbeing College, lots of health improvement services, so physical activity, weight management, diabetes education, community cooking, and so on. And I'm also involved to some extent with our volunteer service as well. And basically, for the last 10 years, we've been commissioned to really promote and to refer people to our exercise referral schemes. And some of the people on this call may know what they are. They're basically leisure centres where you send people to get a course of exercise for so many weeks. And our providers for those are GLL, based in Bath and Keynsham. And we've also got Rivlington, or Dragonfly as it's now known, in the Midsomer Norton area. And for a long time, I've wanted to increase our provision, because although we're commissioned to deliver exercise referral in that way, we all know here that not everybody wants to go into a leisure centre, and not everybody will feel comfortable going into a leisure centre. And we know that just from our own statistics, where even when the GP recommends that, to one of our clients that they should use exercise and they should use a leisure centre, that they don't uptake it. They don't go along as agreed with the GP, and then they drop out. And the problem with that is then, of course, they're not improving their lifestyle through exercise. So we've been trying to build up like an outdoor activity network. So if someone calls us, or if a GP sends a referral to us, we can have a conversation with people that doesn't just involve us doing an onward referral straight to a leisure centre. And especially with our mental health service, with some of the people that we meet, they would never go into a leisure centre. So we do have somebody now in post who is looking at that type of work, where we're trying to get really credible organisations involved within Bath and North East Somerset, where we can actually send people to an outdoor provider rather than to one of these leisure centres. And we've got a few on board, but what we sometimes struggle with is, you know, how do you know if a provider is really credible? And because you know, there's lots of physical activity out there, lots of outdoor activity, but you've got to make sure, and we've got to make sure, if we're sending people to these places, that they're obviously safe and they're effective. So I have spoken to Jane about this already, Jane Wright, and we do have some outdoor provision, which is good. And Jane did mention earlier Eco Wild, and Eco Wild, which is an excellent example of providing things like woodland walks and meditation and whatever. You know, we've been promoting those through our wellbeing courses for some time now. And we also promote activities like through Bath City Farm. We do walking to wellbeing initiatives, and we've just recently linked up with Your Park, Bristol and Bath, which again seems like a very credible provider. But what I really want help with, and what I want to understand more, and you know, what outdoor providers can we work with more that we know for sure are very credible. So what credentials do we need to look at? And it's things like making sure they're a bona fide organisation, making sure obviously things like the staff are DBS checked, making sure they're maybe recommended by other partners and that they've got public liability insurance. And we need a good geographical spread of these, because if we do, and we get them, you know, we get a good network of, say, up to 20 outdoor providers throughout the whole of Bath and North East Somerset, we will then have an amazing option to send all the people that access our services, and we can provide them with new opportunities beyond just the leisure centre. And although there are people who obviously will benefit from leisure centres, but for those who don't, I really want a whole load of options where we can send people. So anything around horticulture, walking, work in parks, all that more sort of low level type of physical activity, which is outdoors, I'm really interested in meeting up with partners and discussing how we can work together. And for some of those, even fund some of their outdoor courses to put them through our wellbeing college. And we do that again with Bath City Farm already, and with Eco Wild, and with other ones. So I think really this is a bit of a shout out to everyone, and a bit of a networking opportunity for me to say, you know, HCRG Care Group really are trying to promote this way of working. And if there's stuff going on in the Midsomer Valley area and beyond, then please contact me after this meeting, we have a practitioner now who works on this, and I can put you straight in touch, and then we would look at how we're building up our network, because I'd love to see over the next sort of 2 years this network grow from the sort of 3 to 4 providers we have now to you know, at least 20 providers across the whole of BANES. And that, Linda, is really it from me. There was, I suppose, the only other thing, we have just made contact with another horticultural project, which could add to our list. They're called Grow for Life, that again, some people may be aware of, and that would really probably support some of our clients who want to improve their mental health.
Thank you for that. We've had a query from Laura Wig-Bailey.
Hi, yes.
Hi, Laura.
Hi, can you see me or hear me?
I can hear you.
At all? Okay. I don't know. I think I can put a pin on myself, but anyway. Yeah, you were asking, I'm from the Somersetshire Coal Canal Society, and so I just very specifically working with that project group. But I have experience in this area, and just wanted to just make a point really about your criteria for getting credible organisations in. And I think Jane Wright would probably say the same, is that people that are providing activities for those people on green social prescribing pathways, they're many and varied, and it's not a one size fits all, and they don't all have, everything completely up to scratch as local authorities and as government bodies would want, but they're still valuable providers. And it's just a sort of, maybe it's just a bit of a two-way street, in that you have policies and procedures in place that you could, without sort of coming down like the iron hands of the law on them, just guide them a little bit into saying, like, with a checklist of things that you might need, and if they haven't got all their DBSs, then there's really simple ways of getting them. And maybe it's a bit of a two-way street, and of course it always comes down to capacity and resource. But we want to build this network, and we want smaller organisations, a bit like the Coal Canal Society that I work for, who would be a great provider for you. They do work parties regularly. They're very good at providing opportunities for volunteers to do stuff outdoors, and they could get up to scratch, but they might need a little bit of support and guidance in the first stages. So that's all I would suggest.
I really agree with that. And obviously, when you work for a bigger organisation, you have to have certain assurances. So when you refer someone who accesses your services, you're making sure you're referring them to a safe service. And I agree that if you're a smaller social enterprise or social project or charity, then of course they need support with that. And I would be very happy to be very flexible with that, and to work with that provider, and just as long as we get the assurance that they're safe and effective to use. So it doesn't need to be heavy-handed at all. We just need that assurance to make sure we're sending people to a safe environment.
Justin, could I just add that the volunteer service would be able to support any organisation with recruiting volunteers and DBS checks. I'll put the contact details in. It's Lucy Scott that works directly to Justin. So, if there is any organisation that wants support in terms of volunteer recruitment and wider support about policies, they would be able to provide some support.
Yeah, that's great, Sarah. Thank you.
And okay, I think we had did we have something from Roger Burfoot? Oh yes, you just said you might be able to help, and you've given your email address.
Yeah, it's purely that. Just simply say this is possibly an area where we may be able to offer some help, and certainly we'd like to have a chat with you.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Roger. Is it in the chat, your email?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Thank you.
Justin, we'll make sure it's passed on. So
okay, thanks, Linda.
And who else have we had? Derek Hunt from about bowls. Yeah. Yep, that was just a comment as well. Have I missed anybody? I don't think I have. I think everyone else was just a comment. So thank you very much indeed. And you've got 3 minutes. Okay.
3 minutes for Jenny. Well, thank you, everybody, and thank you, Linda.
Thank you for coming. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okie doke. So we'll go back to presentation 2 now. And I'd like to introduce Jenny Wilson, who's Health Improvement Officer with the Council, and she's going to speak about active travel social prescribing pilot. Okay, over to you, Jenny.
Thank you, Linda. Hi, everyone. So as Linda's just said, my name is Jenny Wilson. I'm a Health Improvement Officer in the BANES Public Health and Prevention team. My portfolio covers the social determinants or the wider determinants of health. So I do work very closely with Miriam and Jane on the Summer Valley Rediscovered programme. Public Health are a key partner in that. And also we work very closely with Justin and colleagues at HCRG as well. So it's great. We're all on the call and we all work very closely together, which is brilliant. So I'm here today with my colleague Farhan, who's going to speak in a moment, just to talk about a active travel social prescribing feasibility study that we're about, well, we've just commenced in the Summer Valley area. Next slide, please, Sarah. Thank you. So what I wanted to do was, obviously, because there's a range of people on the call, I just wanted to kind of give everyone a bit of the background, and then Farhan's going to take over and speak about the actual feasibility study and the future plans from kind of now onwards. So this was really just to point out that originally back in, I think it was the summer of 2020, when we just started, we were partway through the first year of the pandemic, the government produced their publication called Gear Change, which was really looking at kind of increasing walking and cycling, and as they've called it on the title, a bold vision for cycling and walking. And this is where this idea of kind of cycling on prescription and walking on prescription was first mentioned. So it was really exciting to see that they'd mentioned that's from a transport organisation. And then last summer, so summer of 2021, the Department for Transport, they called for expressions of interest from local authorities across the country for a GP prescribing pilot. Which the idea of it, the pilots would look to provide cycling and walking interventions as part of the local social prescribing offer. So tapping into our current social prescribing provision that we have within our local authority areas. And excuse me. And one of the key aspects about the pilot, which they definitely highlighted and recognised from the beginning, was helping people to live healthier lives, which obviously from a public health perspective is, you know, one of our crucial aims, and obviously one of the aims of the of BANES Council as well. So the pilot projects, the aim of what their DFT are hoping for is to improve physical and mental well-being of the individuals that are referred into the pilot and the activities that we will be able to put on, looking at not only managing existing physical and mental health conditions, but also reducing the prevalence of future ones. So it's about management and prevention. And what they wanted to do was look at obviously how developing a good, safer, more robust transport environment alongside this, the two ends of the spectrum could come together to actually achieve that. So as it says on the slides, and I've just taken this quote directly from the DFT text, the pilot seeks to understand the relationship between personalised support plans to walk and cycle and increased walking and cycling infrastructure in a local authority as a means to increase physical activity, and in the long run, the ultimate aim of trying to work towards a modal shift towards more cycling and walking, and less use of the car going forward. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I won't read them all out, but on the slide I've just put what the requirements were for that was outlined in the initial DFT publication when they called for these expressions of interest. And as you can see, they wanted to invite local authorities with areas of poor health and low physical activity rates. They were really keen to obviously look at this personalised care and tap into obviously aspects that are highlighted in the NHS long-term plan and a lot of what our health colleagues are doing in terms of that personalised care programme. And so obviously working with our link workers and our care coordinators within the area is going to be really crucial for this. What we'll mention a bit later, but obviously this is what we want to kind of elaborate on, is the pilots will look to prescribe cycling and walking, but we'll also look to what needs to we need to put in place to enable that. So making cycles available, as well as training and recognising that everyone is at a different level. Not everyone is ready to cycle, not everyone wants to cycle, not everyone knows how to cycle. And equally, same with walking. It's, you know, people will be, some might already be walking regularly, but some might not. So we need to make sure that we're kind of supporting a full range of people within our communities. And the key part from the Department for Transport's perspective is really is looking at obviously how working with our communities and providing this support and these opportunities is then in the long run, when we've got safe and segregated and improved infrastructure in our local areas, that it, you know, that's the ultimate goal, is to get people feeling more comfortable to walk and cycle. And then when they are, they've got the facilities and the infrastructure to do so, basically. Next slide, please. So the expression of interest went in last year. We identified the Somer Valley. I worked very closely with Miriam on this because as we've already heard on the meeting so far, this project would overlap and work very closely with the Somer Valley Rediscovered programme. So Somer Valley being an area of higher health need than other areas of BANES. And one of the key aspects was why we chose Somer Valley area, particularly focusing initially on Midsomer, Norton, Radstock, Westfield and Paulton, is due to the current and planned active travel infrastructure. So the current infrastructure that's in place, and also what's been identified in the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, which is what the little image is on the screen, where there's been a number of areas and routes that have been identified that need improvement in the local area. And some of the funding for this has been part of the wider funding that's allocated to our area from the Department for Transport as well. And also one aspect, and I realise it's now 10 years out of date, but obviously we're waiting for the new census data to come through, but the last census data we've got to go on showed that the number of people walking or cycling in the area is lower than the BANES average in those four areas. So it's good to know that we've you know, we've got some hopefully some changes that we can make and people that we can support to walk and cycle more. And obviously, one of the greatest aspects which we sold in our application was how fantastic the Somer Valley area is, being a beautiful landscape, interesting heritage, great public rights of way system. And obviously, we've got the existing segregated shared use paths, which obviously have been already mentioned on the call. And it would make an ideal location to set up this kind of active travel hub, which is what we're going to look to explore with this feasibility study. And also another key aspect is obviously there's a lot of things, as Miriam mentioned on her presentation earlier, it links with lots of things that are already happening in the area, such as Somer Valley Rediscovered, the Somer Valley Enterprise Zone, and the Midsomer Norton High Street Action Zone project, just to mention a few of them. Next slide, please. This slide was really just to say, yeah, the EOI went in last summer. We found out we got through to the second stage in September. And then we submitted, Miriam and myself worked extremely hard on very tight timescales to get the stage 2 application in at the end of October. And then we were informed that we've been successful to receive funding to carry out this feasibility study just before Christmas. So, and we were told it was embargoed to the 23rd of January. So we haven't been able to communicate anything out until pretty much last month. So we have recruited a project manager who's Farhan, who's going to speak in a moment, and he's going to lead on this feasibility study. So the feasibility study is, obviously we've started doing what work we could within January, but obviously we were kind of restricted with the embargo, but it's due to be submitted to the Department for Transport at the end of April. So we are on quite a tight timescale. Next slide, please, Sarah. And then really, I'm just going to, this is the final slide that I'm going to refer to, and then I'm going to hand over to Farhan. what we did just for the initial stage 2 application, we had to get a rough idea of what our project might look like and what the pilot project might look like. I put together this diagram, really try and kind of give an overall pictorial image of what that might look like. But the key point now is to say that this feasibility study is really going to look at this detail and see whether or not it is actually feasible to carry out this pilot and whether it will work. So obviously myself, Han, Miriam, working with a range of different organisations and partners across the Somer Valley, and obviously hoping to work with many people on the call today as well. Very much a community project. We want to work with our community and hear the voices of our communities and find out what will be useful and what's going to get more people walking and cycling. But ultimately with the idea of referring in from not only social prescribers and the link workers, looking at linking with Justin, as he was talking about the community wellbeing hub, and looking at how we can tap into other health professional referrals to make, reach as many people as possible. And then ultimately, hopefully setting up some form of active travel hub where, as you can see, there'll be lots of different activities for a full range of, depending on what level and where people are at in their terms of their kind of motivation to walk and cycle. And we're very keen to work with existing organisations such as Sporting Family Change and the West of England Rural Network and their rural moves and their village agents, and obviously looking at where we can expand existing provision. Because obviously those are working well and we don't want to kind of recreate the wheel, excuse the pun. So yeah, we're really at this stage. So what I'm going to do now is I'll hand over to Farham. He's just going to explain a bit more about kind of plans going forward, really.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah, great. Just wanted to test to see if that worked. So my name is Farhan Khan, as Jenny has mentioned, and I am the project manager for the feasibility, feasibility study that Jenny has outlined for this active travel social prescribing scheme, feasibility study. This is actually my first public health role. Very excited to be a part of Bath and North East Somerset County, but I have council rather, but I've a transport planning background, and I bring with me a wealth of experience in transport planning and actually in particular public transport and active travel advocacy, and also private and public sector roles within the transport planning industry. I am very passionate about closing the gaps in social and health inequalities, and listening to some of the what was said at the start of the forum today. I think I agree that people do need to have an outlet when it comes to sport, things like that, but just general mobility and well-being in order to improve rates of health, mental well-being and health as well. And I really do believe from my heart that active travel plays a role in improving rates of social and health inequality. And I'm very excited to be working within the Somer Valley area. So can I have the next slide, please? And as Jenny mentioned, we are looking to focus on developing and delivering an active travel hub. And we're looking for options for various areas at the moment. And really, we want it to be a vibrant community hub, which is where we base our operations, and we welcome folks within the community in to really understand social prescribing and what we're aiming to do. There is a wealth of walking and cycling opportunities within the Somer Valley area. Very beautiful area, and really that's key to the residents, folks in the community. That's key to their health and well-being. The Active Travel Hub will host these opportunities and give further information on how we intend to make best use of these walking and cycling opportunities in the Somer Valley area. Next slide, please. And in addition to creating this Active Travel Hub, community partnership is very much at the heart of this. We're looking to partner with local community to bring about these services and these activities. It could be, guided walks, cycle instruction, things like that. But we're looking to partner with organisations that are already doing great work in the community, such as Wheels for Wellbeing and Sustrans, amongst others. And the most exciting thing, of course, about the Somer Valley area is that we are going to be seeing some infrastructure improvements already, which is why not just having the infrastructure improvements, but also bringing people onto these infrastructure improvements and really just not just have some concrete laid down, but also to have people actually see the benefit of the new infrastructure as well. And of course, as it's a social prescribing model, we're going to be working with local PCNs and charities that provide mental well-being and things like that to actually have a diverse range of referral pathways. And of course, we will look to within our hub and other areas, look for prominent community members such as village agents, which I know are very important within the within the Somer Valley area, in order to partnership work with them as well. And yeah, I look forward to any questions you may have.
Well, thank you very much indeed for that. And yes, does anyone have any questions, please? No, I think you both explained exactly what you're doing. That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Oh, Eleanor, sorry. Eleanor?
Well, it was a brilliant presentation, but I have one enormous problem with all this walking and cycling, and that's the state of the cycle tracks, the Highway 24 railway track that's now a cycle track, and just simply the pavements all over the place. You risk your ankle in a lot of areas, I'm afraid, especially out in the more rural areas, where of course you don't even get any pavements. So unless we can see some serious commitment to improve the actual infrastructure, I don't quite see how this is going to work for very long, quite frankly. I hope I'm wrong. Assure me I'm wrong.
Yes, thanks, Eleanor. No, that's a very, very good point, and that's I don't know, the slides aren't up anymore, but going back to the pathway diagram that I highlighted, running down the side, there was an aspect around improving current infrastructure. So we are currently exploring obviously time depending on what kind of audit we can carry out within the area to exactly what you've just said, Eleanor, is to identify where those improvements need to be made, because obviously the feedback we've had from colleagues in the social prescribing service, and obviously those that are actually having those conversations with some of our residents, particularly those that we're wanting to reach and engage through this project, is the barriers to walking and cycling. And as you've said, some of them, if you haven't got the correct infrastructure, the paths aren't maintained, the routes aren't maintained, obviously that is a huge barrier. So that is something we are wanting to look at and identify where those can be improved. And I think that's what we'd quite like to work with some of the town and parish councils, really, is to find out what insight and knowledge you might already have on that we can take away and look at what might need addressing as well.
Well, Westfield can give you a list tomorrow. I mean, we've been banging on the door of B&NES for the last 10 years, and we still get the paths blocked with brambles so that the children walking to school can't use them, although these are the old colliers paths, and I'm sure we've got them all over the Somer Valley. They're much safer in theory because there are no cars. So if we can only do something about it, perhaps the active gardening side of the projects could tackle the pathways.
That's very funny you should mention that, because I was just writing a note in the chat. That's one aspect I was trying to kind of cover everything, but was wary on time. You know, we are very keen as part of this project to link with and support the green social prescribing work that's underway in the Somer Valley. So that is something, and that could range from obviously walking within the green spaces, but also looking at volunteering opportunities around maintenance of these routes. So that is something that we do want to explore, and it's something we've had an initial discussion with Sustrans, because they have a volunteer programme, but obviously equally we would like to discuss that with people within the community. So I think that's a really good idea, Eleanor, to look at.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, yeah, did we have Roger Burfoot earlier, I thought? Did you have a question, Roger? No, I don't think he did. Okay, so Lavinia. You put something on chat, may I speak?
Yes, thank you very much, Linda. I just wanted to follow on from Eleanor's point about the difficulty of access to some of the routes we already have. I find, because I live in Rislington, that trying to join the Sostrums track 24 is extremely difficult, simply because of the topography around here. Very steep hills to get to join it, which means that that many people cannot actually get access to a wonderful route. And the second point I was going to make is that the Sostrums volunteers already clear that route 24. I've met them a number of times. They do sterling work to keep it free of brambles and what have you. You know, we do have this problem of actually getting people out of sort of the town centres, if you like, to the better paths that are available to us already. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Lavinia. And I think we'll now move on to presentation 4. Laura Wig-Bailey, Heritage and Funding Consultant, to speak about the Somerset Coal Canal. Hello there.
Hiya. Thank you very much. I have 12 minutes, or probably 10 minutes, I expect. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sarah. Sarah, are you moving the slides for me? I assume that she is.
Yeah, I'll be doing that for you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so I'll have to whiz through quite quickly, but I'm assuming I've just got about 10 minutes. Is that right, Linda? Yeah, okay, cool.
Yes.
So, yeah, I was brought on board by the Somersetshire Coal Canal Society to network and look at funding opportunities for their project. So which is why I'm here, and I've put together this presentation to just share, to show to different people and different stakeholders what partnership with their society would be all about and what the opportunity might be. So if we could move on to the next slide, please. I just introduced the society themselves. On my screen, all of your faces are kind of over them. They're going to be over all the pictures, unfortunately, but never mind. There's a group of volunteers doing wonderful stuff on the canal. So it's a society that was formed as a registered charity in 1995, but they've been working for some time before that. And their aims are to educate people about the Somersetshire Coal Canal, which is very quite a long system. It has two arms, and they're working on the northern, and to preserve it and restore it to such a state as it doesn't get overwhelmed with. It's filled in some places, but not in all places. So, and look after the structures as well. And they're doing that today, and they have been for many years. The society has 200 paying members and a really active Facebook group with over 1,000 members. So you should check that out, because there's loads on there and lots of information if you're interested about the canal. Next slide, please. So they're a grassroots organisation. They're working on the ground a lot of the time, but also they've brought me in, and they've also been working strategically for a long time to try and protect the canal. So it's now been protected in planning. It's in the B&NES local plan, which I know that has a much longer name, but it is protected in planning. But so they do work strategically, but very much around recruiting volunteers to look after the heritage features. And there you can see some working on a lock wall there. Increasing biodiversity along the canal line, so managing those big bully brambles, maintaining hedgerows, and so on, doing what they can do within their remit, because they're working on other people's land. So there's a lot of work to do there with the landowners as well. So that's quite a tricky part of it. And also sharing the stories. It's a heritage asset at the end of the day, and I'll talk a little bit more about the history in a minute. But they want to share those stories, and they've been collecting images and sharing them through their website for a really long time as well, and through their magazine called the Weybridge. And Derek will probably come on the chat and correct me if I'm wrong about that. Derek Hunt is here as well. He's a trustee or a director. And as I'm doing now, but they have also been doing this a long time, is liaising with community groups and very importantly, the landowners and other stakeholders like B&NES and the rest of the groups that are here as well, parish councils, councillors and lots of other people too. Can I have the next slide, please? So a little bit more about the canal itself. Way house. Thank you, Derek. And that's an important thing in canal history as well. The way house is a thing. You probably can't see the map because of all our faces. Can someone just indicate whether you can actually see the map on the screen? Okay, right, it's just the way I've got my Zoom set up then. Okay, so that just, I'm not going to run through it because I know I haven't got an awful lot of time, but the blue line is the line of the canal as it is, and you can see there where it goes, and in your landscape, you probably know the landscape better than me. But it's a really gives a rich history of lots of different things, really. It's not just about industry, that it's got engineering stories, it's got geological and science stories. So a really fascinating fact that I found out working on this was that William Smith, who was a lowly surveyor, he wasn't even the designer of the canal, working through his work on surveying the landscape of the Somer Valley and all the rest of the line, submitted his findings to the Royal Society and was actually the founding father of geology. So that's one of the, just a small insight into the stories of the canal. I don't need to tell you what an amazing landscape it's in, but some of the areas are actually breathtakingly beautiful. And some of the structures as well, and I'll come on to those next actually. So can I have the next slide, please? So yeah, the structures are, you know, really unusual and interesting in lots of ways. So we at the Somerset Coal Canal Society and its approach to restoration is now very much focused on discrete projects. So rather than trying to restore the full 12 miles, I think it is, you know, in one big go, they're taking this sort of discrete project approach, and they tend to be focused around the important physical structures, built structures, and you can see some of them there. So Timsbury and Paulton basins, that's the end of the canal. At that end, there's a number of structures, and it's an amazing space as well. So there's ideas around that becoming a visitor and outdoor pursuit centre. And this all obviously ties in, I don't need to say really, very much with the Somer Valley Rediscovered project and the Limestone Way, as Miriam mentioned, the Coal Canal Way, which is a walk that can be walked, and they have a map and it's excellent and can be, you can get it with your membership as well. If you sign up to be a member, you can also buy it, but it does help you navigate that route as well. But that's where it starts, and that could be could link into some of this green social prescribing and active travel work that's going on. So, and then there's the Coombe Hay Locks. It's a flight of locks, and it's an extraordinary sort of hairpin bend of locks that was to deal with a change in levels. Thanks, Roger. It's not only an incredible feat of engineering, it's also a very biodiverse landscape. And the picture that you can see there is Cason House, which is a private well, it's all privately owned, to be fair, but they when I met them, they were telling me about the wild orchids that they've got in their field, which is on a footpath. And so, you know, it's all accessible, but only if you know kind of where to look and where to go. And then Midford Aqueduct, which was restored through National Lottery funding as well. I'm just looking at the time, not got much time left. Has been beautifully restored and is on the route, but could do so much more in terms of working with people and attracting people to the area by becoming a permanent mooring site and accommodation, visitor accommodation, heritage and nature walks as well. So those are the key projects that we're looking at the moment. And can I have the next slide, please? Helena, not sure. I'll answer that later, I think, right, separately. I did mention about the biodiverse landscape. Okay, good. So, you know, canals are really, really important for biodiversity. Obviously, water adds value, which was the great finding of the Canal and River Trust a few years ago. It adds value to economically, from a biodiversity point of view, from a regeneration point of view. So canals are really, really amazing for that stuff. But as I said before, probably can't restore the whole length all in one go. So what you'd be creating is a series of ponds, which is great for nature. Lots more edges. Edges are great for nature. And you know, they do promote lots of biodiversity. So and then the pathways along the canals. Canal societies are great for this. I work for a number of them up and down the country, and they're always maintaining hedgerows. And like we heard from Eleanor before, you know, brambles and nettles are really problematic, although they're great habitat in some ways. They do need looking after. And so maintaining hedgerows and keeping on top of those things, canal societies do at grassroots level. So, and the Somerset Shickhole Canal is definitely one of those, but they need more funding, hence why I'm there, and they need more volunteers. So hence why we're here talking to people. Yeah, and also this really important point is that it is a post-industrial landscape, but it is on private land. So some of it's, you know, there are public footpaths and so on, but not all of it is, not all of the landowners want to encourage people to sort of tramp across their land, even though the pathways are rights of way. If the Somerset Coal Canal Society can work to just managing people better, it's better for the environment as well, because having people kind of educated and confined to the pathways rather than sort of rambling all over the place is a good thing for nature, particularly wild orchids, just as an example. They're very delicate. But that's just one example, but it's a way of managing the visitor experience as well, is keeping them to the paths. So the Coal Canal Way and obviously the limestone link is a really important part of that. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so now we're on to sort of the more boring stuff. And I use this presentation in lots of different contexts, so that's why this is here, but I'll whip through it anyway. And this is why we want to do it. So the evidence of need, and what Jenny put on in her presentation was way more of a kind of evidence-based approach than what I've been able to put into here. And she talked a lot about this anyway, but in the rural context, there is a great need for this sort of thing. So the Canal and River Trust did this study called Water Adds Value, which shows the economic, communal, environmental value of canals specifically. They do have a way of bringing adjacent properties back into use, creating business opportunities and job creation, and sustainable tourism. Obviously, it's, you know, a lovely green canal. Obviously, there's kind of environmental impacts in building and restoring canals, but once they're there, they have a much better biodiversity net gain. So just to use Miriam's term from earlier. And in the rural context as well, there's pockets of deprivation that are hard to reach in an area of affluence. And Jenny really put it well about what the need is from a social point of view in the area that we're looking at here. So I don't think I need to go over that again. Next slide, please. Yes, so I think I'll probably just skip through this onto the next slide, because we have, thank you very much. So yes, B&NES declared a climate emergency in March 2019, and I just wanted to highlight that, you know, this active travel, the route is going to be, if we get, you know, any further along the line, the Cole Canal Way it will be an upgraded footpath and cycle path, which promotes active travel, helps people to commute between villages, and then obviously, as Jenny said, it gets cars off the roads, and that is a big issue in rural areas and that statistic is there to show how much more people use their cars in the countryside. Okay, next slide, please. So the vision from the SCCS, which is a quicker way of saying Somerset Coal Canal Society, is to focus on short lengths, as I said, and structures that are achievable with those cooperative landowners. Improve the footpaths and wayfinding, and I know that there's work happening across the limestone link in different areas. There are other groups trying to do this as well, and Sustrans is one, and Somer Valley Rediscovered Project is another, and then there's some local groups as well. So we really need to connect into those. It's not always easy, as I pointed out when we were talking to Justin, for societies like ours to connect up with these other big projects because of capacity issues. So yeah, but it is definitely on the agenda. And I'm just going to move my screen away so I can look at my slide. And implement good environmental conservation principles to enhance biodiversity. That's really, really important to them. And to restore the canal, not necessarily for big narrow boats to cruise up and down immediately, but to do these small sections, which helps with biodiversity and the tourism angle as well, and improving you know, for businesses and so on in those areas. So they wouldn't like me to say that it's not the aim to restore to navigation, but it's what's achievable and working on what we can do now. Okay, next slide, please. So I'm going to actually just whiz through these last two slides. In fact, I probably won't talk any more about them than just say we are looking for strategic partnerships. The society is as I say, it's a grassroots society and doesn't have a great deal of capacity. There's a really experienced committee working to try and promote this, but there isn't an awful lot of capacity on the ground. So, you know, it's about working with other people, and those are some of the potential people that we want to work with, the landowners especially. There's 83 of them, and we need to sort of draw them together as well. So they're up for working in a partnership with other organisations. Can I have the next slide, please, Sarah? So these are just some other examples of other partnerships that are doing similar things to us. So the Water Space Partnership, it's run by B&NES, and the Stroud Valleys Canal Company is a really, really successful and interesting organisation that have done this, are working with local authorities, and they are a trust. And they have, you know, been incredibly successful with the National Lottery. And I noticed that somebody put in the chat, are you looking to go to the National Lottery? Well, yeah, we are. But it's, you know, the National Lottery will want to see an awful lot from the organisation and the project before we can get to that point. So there's quite a lot of work to do putting that project together and putting an organisation together. So Stroud Valleys Canal Company was successful in getting £8 million recently to restore some of their canal. But that was done through a big partnership like this, because, you know, it's public money and has to be spent, and that much money needs to be spent properly. Okay, next slide, please. I think that might be it. Yeah, so as I say, we're here in the spirit of wanting to connect up, wanting people to work with us, and to just restore and bring to the public attention this amazing piece of industrial heritage and protect the environment and work with local communities. So yeah, that's me.
Well, thank you very much for that. That's really interesting. And I'll get my husband to watch this when he gets home tonight. So because he'll be fascinated by this, because his whole being is wrapped around water.
Oh, wow.
Having a boat. So yeah, very keen. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Lynn. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. And do you give talks?
Pardon?
Give talks. Does the
Do we give talks?
organisation go out to, meetings and give talks?
Yes, absolutely. As I say, capacity is an issue, but Derek is there and I know he loves giving talks.
Right, okie doke. Yeah, thank you very much for that.
No problem.
So are there any other questions before we close down? No? Right. Yeah. Well, I wondered if Claude, Radstock Town Council, wanted to say anything about the Radstock Methodist Chapel.
Yeah, so you might have seen on social media, and we have tried to email out to as many people and organisations as possible, but Trinity Methodist Church stopped worshipping at the end of January, and the decision by the church has been that they are looking to sell. The decision is also that they want to sell to the highest bidder. Radstock Town Council have been working with the church to sort of determine whether there is any possibility of us purchasing or working with community groups to look at whether, sorry about my little son, whether we can look at working with groups to raise funds to purchase the building. And we have a petition going at the moment, so please look out for that. The details are on our Facebook pages, or you can email us and we will. We are also holding an open session next Wednesday in the Methodist Church to gather any information of people who would like to use the church as community usage. Basically, we don't want the church to become a derelict building or residential building in the high street, and we want to protect it for the groups that are using it. We have the Silver Band, the Brownies, and many other groups that have been using it over the years. Obviously, some of those have dwindled over COVID, but the town council wants to support the building being a community asset. So any support that anyone can offer or any interest that you have, then please get in touch with us. Thank you. Thank you, Linda, and thank you, Alison, for thinking of us.
Eleanor, do you want to have a say about this?
Well, yes, I mean, I'm just so grateful to George and the Radstock Town Council for coming in, because I have to say organisation is not my strong point, and Facebook and Twitter and so on, I just can't manage at all. But George has organised extremely well. On the other, I was the church council secretary until the 31st of January when said worship stopped. We do actually have some of the long-serving church volunteers ready to step in and help run this building. Most importantly, the man who does the treasuring. And we reckon we've identified a number of charities and possibilities for getting the roof mentioned, because going around in a circle to where we started, there was some serious vandalism perpetrated, which will take about, if we do the insulation and everything else that needs to be done to the chapel roof at the same time, will cost £100,000. But we reckon that we can do that. It's going forward with the business plan that will be more difficult. But it's such a beautiful building and such an important part of the mining heritage of this area that it would be absolutely criminal to gut it and turn it into flats, as was done with St Hugh's Church on the Wells Hill. But that is a different planning issue, that one. This one hasn't got any car parking. So I'm hopeful that just sheer planning policy will rule it out as flats. But Methodists are based in Manchester and are not really being quite as helpful as one might expect for something that is already registered as a community heritage, in a community asset, and I hope will soon be a heritage asset as well. So please help us all you can. And of course, you can hire space in the building still. If the Somerset Coalfield Society would like to have a meeting, they'd be very welcome. Well, it's only a stone's throw from the basin behind the Radstock Hotel, which unfortunately is closed, you see. So that's why I'm worried about the lockkeeper's house. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for that, Eleanor. It is a lovely building, and I've been there quite a bit. So yeah, I agree with you totally. Be lovely. Oh, and the final thing, I had a gentleman of 93 ring up a few hours ago to give me the history of the Clandown Chapel. We are, which he was a member, we are holding an exhibition on the history of the Radstock Methodist churches in the Radstock Museum from September to the end of November. So if you know anybody who's sitting on membership cards or plaques or any other mementos, we'd really like to borrow them for the exhibition. Righty-ho, right. Okay, right. Well, thank you everybody for coming and being online with us tonight. Really appreciate it, and look forward to the next one. Now, the next scheduled meeting is Wednesday, the 15th of June. And then following on from that, the 28th of September. Now, these are basic meetings that we've got in the diary. If things crop up, they can be changed, but they're the ones. And we are happy to call special meetings of the forum between these dates if there are items that people feel are very important and need to be brought up a bit more quickly. So it would be Alison and Sarah that you contact for that. So a big thank you to them too, because they've run everything either side of me here tonight in this room, and I haven't had to touch a laptop or anything. So it's really wonderful. I'd like to say a big thank you and good night.
Good night, thank you.
Good night, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.